Hi, I'm Jeffrey, and this is AutoAlchemy, the intersection between typology and self-growth. I am an ENTP, but this video is dedicated to all of my little INTP brothers out there, or at least the people who think they might be an INTP and who want a little bit of clarification, so let's just jump into it. Anyway, welcome back to my channel. If you want to support my work and get early access to content like this, as well as other bonus goodies, don't forget to check out my Buy Me a Coffee page. Anyhow, if you are watching this video, then you're probably wondering, how do I know if I'm really an INTP? Maybe you took some online personality test. Maybe you took multiple online personality tests. Maybe you stumbled upon a Frank James video. Maybe you stumbled upon my INTP rap. Look, I don't know how you got here, but the mere fact that you're watching this video tells me that you're not quite certain if you fit into this particular box, although you are considering it. And so I want to be a guide. I want to help you clarify whether or not you're actually an INTP. If you are uncertain about your personality type, that's completely understandable. The truth is, it's a lot harder to actually figure out your type than we tend to think. There are many different reasons for that, but we will just cover a few of them right here. Just messaging my girlfriend, if you're an INTP, you won't have that problem. I'm just kidding, that's a very cruel joke to make, but I made it. All right, so one big reason why it's hard to decipher your personality type is that there are so many issues with online personality tests. Pretty much any jackass with an internet connection can go out there and create their own personality test. Believe me, I'm working on one myself as we speak. I mean, not like literally in this moment, but I can see the icon on my computer. Problem is that personality type is complicated and pretty easy to misunderstand. So if you're not understanding subject matter as you're building a test, you're naturally going to build in your own biases and blind spots into that test, and then that's going to perpetuate out into the world, and everybody who's taking your test will then become little agents of chaos, also sending out this misinformation. Misinformation, man, is one of my least favorite things. And by the way, when you're building a personality test in your mom's basement, chances are pretty good that you're not actually striving to make something that is psychometrically sound. The point is, there are problems with tests, and a lot of tests are unreliable, they're inconsistent. They look to surface level behavior while ignoring some of the fundamental psychological phenomena that are more relevant to a person's personality type. Another reason why it's pretty hard to figure out your type is that you can only put into a personality test what you see in yourself, but we don't always see ourselves clearly. One of the things that I like to say is that we are like fish in water. A fish doesn't necessarily know that it's in water. If you are completely embedded within something, like the use of your thinking function, then you start to take it for granted. It becomes your default. It's a lot like breathing. Human perception heavily relies upon contrast, and it's much easier to see something that breaks a pattern as opposed to seeing the pattern itself. If you stumbled upon a ginkgo tree in a forest of pine trees, well, it's still going to be a pine forest, right? But your eyes are going to be drawn to that ginkgo tree. I don't know if this example would actually work in reality. I don't know anything about trees. Do not question my arboreal knowledge. Thank you. Again, the point is that we notice what breaks the pattern more than we notice the pattern itself. So I am an ENTP, but maybe I become fixated on this one time that I really tried to organize my room and make things so nice and perfectly neat. And I think, wow, I expended a lot of energy doing that thing, and not only that, but it stands out in my mind as an exception. It has a little bit of shininess to it. It would be very easy for me to identify with that because I'm noticing it, but that's the exception and not the rule. Another reason that it's hard to figure out your type is intratype variation, meaning there is a lot of variation even within a particular personality type. I am personally a fan of the objective personality system, and in that system, there are actually 32 sub-variants of each personality type. So even if you are an INTP, there's going to be some other INTP who is as different from you as possible while still being an INTP. So you're going to have a few things in common, but then you're going to differ in every other relevant dimension. But enough about differences, let's talk about what all INTPs actually share so that we can answer your gosh darn question. The key thing that all INTPs share is a strong preference for introverted thinking over extroverted feeling. Keep in mind that in typology, one of the key building blocks is the idea of binary coins. It seems like human consciousness, for whatever reason, requires the existence of opposing poles, and people unconsciously, unthinkingly end up preferring one pole at the expense of the other. So one pole ends up being seen as the solution to all of life's problems, the thing that you are compulsively attached to, and the other gets rejected, it gets discarded. If you have any appreciation for it whatsoever, you're probably still expecting other people to take care of that one. Carl Jung, the psychologist who originated these ideas, said that typology is really about one-sidedness. And so for the INTP, the major form of one-sidedness is this difference between their introverted thinking and their extroverted feeling. Roughly speaking, you could think of this as a hermit-like private approach to logic and thinking things through versus being more interested in public, tribal emotions and values. So INTPs typically want the freedom to seek out the truth. They want to engage in a deep map-making process where they're mapping out the territory of a particular problem and trying to generate solutions to that problem. And it's usually a very deep problem, a problem that's going to involve a lot of introverted work where you have to withdraw from the world. If you are operating from that headspace, it's only natural then that you're going to perceive other people, their emotions, their beliefs and value systems as being obstacles, because people might be inclined to say, hey, why are you prioritizing that? That doesn't matter to the group. That in fact might hurt our feelings. It might violate one of our sacred principles. So that's a tension for the INTP. I think a lot of TI users have a fear of being crucified in some way by a mad, wild tribe of unthinking, overly emotional people. And here are some memes that kind of sum up this particular introverted thinking worldview at its most excessive. By the way, if you are someone who is naturally logic driven but more compulsively drawn towards connecting with other people, constantly solving their problems for them, then you might actually be a TE user. You might be an ENTJ or an ESTJ. Just something to think about. The second thing that all INTPs have in common is a shared irrational/observer function axis. INTPs and ISTPs both lead with introverted thinking and have extroverted feeling as their major daemon functions. So if we really want to narrow down your type, we're going to need more information. INTPs are on the NE-SI axis, while ISTPs are on the SE-NI axis. And this means that for the INTP, the sensing function is introverted and therefore somewhat personal, while intuitive patterns are more extroverted, they are more impersonal. That translates into the INTP enjoying playing with abstract ideas, framing and reframing different understandings of things. Their approach to intuition is more exploratory and more expansive, while their approach to the concrete realities around them is a little more linear, a little more organized. You can compare that to the ISTP, who lives in a world of impersonal sensory information, where the patterns are actually the things that are more private, more personal. So the many ups and downs and textures of engaging with sensory reality are often seen as demonstrating or illuminating an overarching intuitive pattern. That distinction can be a little hard to get at, so let me give you another way of looking at it or thinking about it. Extroverted intuition likes collecting patterns, frameworks, and understandings. Introverted intuition tries to get as much mileage as possible out of one or two patterns. By the way, according to the objective personality system, about half of the INTPs out there are going to have a savior preference for their intuition, and the other half are going to have a preference for sensing. So half of the INTPs out there are going to lean in a more abstract, exploratory, plethoric direction, and the other half are going to be more concrete, more linear, perhaps a little more comfort-driven. Either way, the difference between those middle two functions of sensing and intuition is not going to be anything like that major cognitive chasm between the introverted thinking and the extroverted feeling. So anyway, that should give you a framework or two for thinking through how to know if you are actually an INTP. To really understand if the INTP profile applies to you, you're going to need a lot of honesty. As I said before, it's hard to see yourself clearly. You might need to seek some outside triangulation. How do the other people in your life perceive you? Where do you fit in the spectrum of humanity? You'll need to take some time to actually watch yourself over time to understand what your patterns are, what you're seeking out compulsively, and what you're rejecting as a result. The things that you reject ultimately build up and usually hit you as a tidal wave, demanding your attention all at once. Maybe you are neglecting the tribe, as I mentioned before, and suddenly, because you're not attending to your friend group or the people around you, you're in danger of being abandoned by them, or suddenly they all hate you. You're suddenly the object of their ire. Try to think in terms of flow state. Where are you operating calmly, responsibly? If you keep at it, you'll solve the puzzle in time. Or at least the INTPs out there will. Well, that's it. Thanks for tuning into AutoAlchemy, and thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. I will catch you next time. Ta-ta.